I welcome you again to another Tuesday teaching. My name is Josephine, your digital educator. I've been teaching on the relationship between science and religion. Last Tuesday, I taught on the nature and theories of religion. And I'm teaching today on the nature of science. The nature of science. I'm taking this thing step by step for us to have a broader view. You know, I started by introducing science and religion, then branched to teach the nature and theories of religion. Now I'm doing the nature of science. And thereafter, we are going to now look at the relationship between the two, between science and religion. And you know, I love this particular topic because I'm involved. My first degree is in science major. I majored in biochemistry, but my master's and my doctorate degree, they're all in religion or theology. So I need others too. I'm not giving my view yet, but I need you to look at it and say, do we have a concord in science and religion or theology, or is there a conflict in both? Let's join learnwithjoes and then we can continue. I welcome you back. The teaching today is on the nature of science. The nature of science. Still science. The nature of science. The first thing to say here is that it is exceedingly difficult to characterize this phenomenon. First, consider science. What exactly is science? Like religion is a little bit difficult to even explain. So what exactly is science? How can we characterize science? What are the necessary and sufficient conditions for a given inquiry, theory, or claim to be scientific? Either we say inquiry, theory, or claim to be scientific, or part of it to be science. This is far from easy to say. Many conditions have been proposed as essential to science. Jacques Monod says, the cornerstone of the scientific method is the postulate that nature is objective. In other words, the systematic denial that true knowledge can be got by interpreting nature in terms of final causes. That's Monod's emphasis. In the 1930s, the eminent German chemist Weberneus claimed that science by definition requires an infinite universe. Hence, Big Bang theory, he said, isn't science. Another proposed constraint is that science can generally involve moral or value judgments. There is an intimate connection between the nature of science and its aim, the conditions under which something is successful science. Some say the aim of science is explanation, whether or not this is put in the service of truth. Some realists say science aims to produce true theories. Others say science aims to produce empirically adequate theories, whether or not they are true. Francine, 1980. Some say science can't deal with the subjective, but only with the public and shareable, and thus reports of consciousness are a better subject for scientific study than consciousness itself. Some say that science can deal only with this repeatable. Others deny this. In the furor over teaching intelligent science, ID, in public schools, some have said that scientific theories must be falsifiable. Since the proposition that living things like rabbits have been designed by one or more intelligent designer isn't falsifiable. ID is in science. Others point out that many eminently scientific claims, for example, there are electrons, aren't falsifiable in isolation. What is falsifiable are old theories about electrons. And while an intelligent being has designed the proposition, living things are not falsifiable in isolation. So the proposition of an intelligent being has designed and created 800-pound rabbits can live in Cleveland is falsifiable. That is false. They are false. The first group may reply that this proposition about 800 pounds rabbits is equivalent to its empirical implications, i.e., to the proposition that there are 800 rabbits that live in Cleveland. So the bit about designer really drops out. The second group may then retort that if so, the same must hold for electron theories. Still, electron theories are equivalent to their empirical implication, so electrons drop out. Still, others claim that science is constrained by methodological naturalism. The idea that neither the data for scientific investigation nor a scientific theory can adequately refer to supernatural beings, such like God, angels, demons. Thus, one couldn't correctly propose as part of science a theory according to which the recent outbreak of weird and irrational behavior in Washington, D.C. is to be accounted for in terms of increased demonic behavior in that neighborhood. Or how do we know that MN, that is the methodological naturalism, is an essential constraint on science? Some claim that it is simply a matter of definition. Thus, narcimorphy, there is what we might call methodological atheism, which is common to all natural science. Murphy, 2001, 464. She continues, this is simply the principle that scientific explanations are to be in terms of natural, not supernatural entities and processes. Similarly, for Mackerus, the creationists believe that the world started miraculously, but miracles lie outside of science, which deals only with the natural, the repeatable, that which is governed by law. People ask, what about the Big Bang? If it turns out to be unrepeatable, must we conclude that it can be studied significantly, scientifically? If it's not repeatable, that it cannot be studied scientifically, and consider the claim that science, by definition, deals only with that governed by law, natural law, one supposes. Some empiricists, in particular Barnes van Vrassen, argue that there aren't any natural laws, but only regularities. If they are correct, will it follow that science has nothing to study? Still, while some argue that MN is an essential constraint on science, others dispute this. But can a serious dispute be settled just by citing a definition? Therefore, giving plausible, necessary, and sufficient conditions for science is far from trivial. And many philosophers of science have given up on the demarcation problem, the problem of proposing such conditions, according to London 1988. Perhaps the best we can do is point to paradigmatic examples of science and paradigmatic examples of non-science. Of course, it may be a mistake to suppose that there's just one activity here and one A. The sciences are enormously varied. The sort of activity goes on in highly theoretical branches of physics. For example, investigating what happened during the first 10 to 43 seconds, or trying to figure out how to suggest string theory to empirical check. But there's also the sort of project exemplified by an attempt to learn how the population of Tocoderos has responded to the decimation of the Amazon jungle over the last 25 years. In the first kind of account, it may make sense to think what is desired is an empirically adequate theory, with the question of the theory's truth, at least temporarily, bracketed. Not so in cases of the second kind. Here, nothing but the sober truth we do. Similarly, with methodological naturalism, some scientific projects are constrained by MN. A condition for theoretical adequacy will undoubtedly be that the account in question is naturalistic. But is MN just part of the very nature of science as such? According to Isaac Newton, often said to be the most outstanding scientist of all time, the orbits of the planets would decay into chaos without outside intervention. He therefore proposed that God periodically adjusts their orbits. Why that hypothesis is one that we no longer need, is it clear that its addition to Newton's account of the motions of the planets resulted in something that wasn't science at all? That seems unduly harsh. Perhaps we should consider the concept of science as one of those cluster concepts called to our attention by Thomas Aquinas and Ludwig Wittgenstein. Perhaps several quite different activities go under the name science. These activities are related to each other by similarity and analogy, but there's no single activity that is just science as such. There are projects for which the criterion of success involves producing true theories. There are others where the criterion of success involves producing empirically adequate theories, whether or not they are also true. MN constraints projects. Other projects are not so constrained. These projects or activities all fall under the term science, but there's no single activity of which all are examples. In the same way, chess, basketball, and poker are all games, but there's no single game of which they are all versions. Perhaps the best we can do concerning characterizing science is to say that the term science applies to any activity that is, one, a systematic and disciplined enterprise aimed at finding out the truth about our world, and two, has significant empirical involvement. This is vague. How systematic? How disciplined? How much empirical involvement? And perhaps unduly permissive. Does astrology account as science, even if only bad science? Still, we have many excellent examples of science and non-science. Suggesting readings on religion and science, I'm suggesting 2 separate domains by Stephen Jay Gould. Science Discredits Religion, Richard Dawkins. Restating Design with Science, William Dembski. At the Mercy of Chance, Philip Kitcher. Objections from the Social Sciences and Religious Uses of Modern Atheism. I'm suggesting these books for people who are actually interested in learning a lot about the relationship between science and religion. But I'm going to continue next Tuesday on this teaching. Join me on Tuesday for further teaching on this. I wish you a fantastic week. Enjoy it. Don't be confused. Don't be delayed. Either we talk about even medicine, which is science, I've come to realize the role of religion or theology, because some doctors will tell you that they care, they try, they just care that it's only God that heals. We get to that. Join me on Friday for another lesson of life. I'll be talking about embracing this, embracing that. For more clarification on issues, please look at my description link. If you have not subscribed, click that subscribe button. If you have not turned on your notification, please do so that you receive alerts next time, or you are alerted once or notified once I release another video. Thank you all for joining me this week. My name is Josephine. I'm the online educator for Learn with Joes, an academy of knowledge economy.